men, women, children, whoever you are, everyone's welcome to your boy Peter here, aka Peter Freakout 10, baby. Bring you guys an episode of the Movie Review Show, with the good movies are always reviewed. Okay, back into our movie review. Now, on today's episode, we're continuing off with the other movie I saw during my double feature, this being the one that I saw after Sleepy Hollow. And this was one that I was actually going to review for New Year's, but I didn't have the time to review it because I was very busy. And it's one that I had my eye on for a while because I thought it was a nice change of pace for this star who has been the eye for many action movies, but never horror. So I became interested in seeing him in this film and seeing him take on a story like this. And I thought it was an insane idea that they went for. And what film is that, you may be asking? That film is none other than End of Days. But does it all come together? Well, grab your crosses, your guns, and get yourself a good morning shake, because we're talking about End of Days. Now, End of Days, this is a film made in the year 1999, and this is directed by Peter Hyams. Now, Peter Hyams, this is actually a director who I like, being that he directed two of my favorite Van Damme films, Time Cop and Sudden Death. But he also directed a film that I actually love called The Relic, a very underrated monster film from the 90s. If you guys haven't seen that, go check it out. It's a very good one. But the idea for End of Days came about because of writer Andrew W. Marlowe, who wrote 2 episodes of the TV show Viper, and actually a couple years before this wrote Air Force One. Yeah, I shit you not. He was made aware of the Y2K craze that was on everyone's mind around the time, where people were in fear that the world was going to come to an end. And he drew influence from not only that, but various members of the clergy, Christians, Catholics, occult specialists, and priestess. And the various people he met with became intrigued with what he was writing, despite him coming to them feeling apologetic of the fact that he was writing a horror action movie. And the entire script, when it came to the end, incorporated aspects of religious histories based on discussions he had with those peoples, Christian apocalyptic theology, with the original intent of this being a star vehicle for Tom Cruise. He shopped the script around till Universal got involved, as they thought the premise was unique, and it gave the film a budget of $83 to $100 million. With an original director lined up, that being music video director Marcus Nispel. But immediately after coming on, he was fired because he had some demands that were making the film go over budget, and he came across being overly ambitious. So he walked off the project, and then the team considered going with Guillermo del Toro, but he turned it down. Even Sam Raimi, but he had another project. But then the team brought in Peter Hyams, as they already had history with him due to his work on Time Cop and Sudden Death, but he was also recommended by James Cameron to direct. And getting the cast together, the idea to get Tom Cruise involved was thrown out the window immediately because he had already chosen Magnolia over this film. They then had a backup idea: Arnold Schwarzenegger as the lead, when one of them brought up the idea of what if it's Arnold versus the devil. This would be his first movie since Batman and Robin, due to the fact that he went through open heart surgery after making that film and were unsure if they could get him. But around this time, he was unable to get work, so he agreed to take the job and was willing to do the action scenes. Once they got that all settled, they got the rest of their cast together and began shooting. Despite the movie being set in New York, the movie was actually shot in Los Angeles. One of the locations was actually a Catholic church in downtown Los Angeles. That this was done to keep the film on schedule. Despite everybody enjoying their time making the film, Peter and Arnold oftentimes butted heads behind the scenes when it came to the film's lighting, as they felt it was very difficult to tell what was going on, which they made clear in the dailies, with even Rod Steiger saying that he had difficulties working with Peter Hyams, with one point Rod even threatening to beat him up. However, there were reports of people saying Arnold was acting like a diva on set, so who knows who to believe in that situation. Despite all that, shooting went well, and for the effects, Peter brought in Stan Winston Studios to handle the effects, being that they already had a history of working together, being that the last film that they did was The Relic, with K&B also handling aspects of the effects, and the CGI being handled by Rhythm and Hughes. Shooting lasted for a certain amount of time, and they already had shot 2 endings for the finished films, but after test screenings and both of them testing poorly, they decided to go back and shoot another ending, which tested a lot better. I know that to promote the film, the marketing machine was one of them having Arnold having an appearance on WWF, and even Fangoria in that Sleepy Hollow issue did an article covering the behind the scenes, and the film was finally released on October 26, 1999. In its opening weekend, it opened to number 3 at the box office, which is understandable, as that weekend it found itself competing with Toy Story 2 of all movies, and The World Is Not Enough. And in its opening weekend, grossed over $31 million. I know by the new year, the film grossed over $64 million, so it made some of its money back. Worldwide, it's probably helping getting some of that change back, but I think they were hoping for a bigger hit. I think the timing was kind of the thing that really killed it, especially when you're going up against friggin' Toy Story 2 or a James Bond film, both of which were highly anticipated. And probably the film's reception didn't help much either, as on Rotten Tomatoes it is 11%. Critics trashed the film for what they considered poor acting and over-the-top action, despite some critics having fun with the idea. Roger Ebert, in particular, awarded the film 2 stars. Despite this, he did say that there were aspects of the film's logic that he found interesting in how they were explained, but criticized the film for its plot holes. Audience, though, seems to be a bit more mixed. As on that side, it's a bit higher by 33%, so it's more in the mixed category. But on IMDb, it's a 5.8 out of 10, so depends on where you look again. Now, as I said, I was interested in the idea of having a Arnold horror film, and being someone who was tired of hearing about the Y2K fucking shit, I thought it was an interesting way to kind of channel the tiredness of it into a movie. And reading the Fangoria article, I thought that there was some fun here, and I thought it was a brilliant idea to have Arnold in a horror film. I guess you could say Predator did that, but the idea of having Arnold up against Satan was a bit of a selling point, so I was sold. And after seeing Sleepy Hollow, I went into this very excited, and I enjoyed it. It's a fun movie that really goes for it with its idea. And the critics ripping this to shred, I gotta say this, if you're going into this for fucking logic, man, it's Arnold fighting Satan. I think suspension of disbelief can be allowed. It's not meant to be taken seriously. It's not meant to be Exorcist. It's not meant to be this grandiose movie. This is just meant to be a fun action movie. And I think it has a lot going for it, especially in the story department, which I'll explain later. But anyway, getting into the cast in this film, you got Arnold Schwarzenegger as the lead, who of course was in Terminator, Terminator 2, Predator, The Running Man. He was also in various other action films from the 90s. You have Gabriel Byrne from Miller's Crossing, Cool World, and The Usual Suspects. Robin Tunney from The Craft, and the movie called Niagara, which I haven't seen. You have Kevin Pollak from Grumpy Old Men and its sequel, Grumpier Old Men. He's the son of Walter Matthau's character. You have Rod Steiger, who was the priest in the Amityville Horror. He's also in that horror movie American Gothic and The Kindred. You also have small roles from people like Udo Kier from Blade and Johnny Mnemonic, CCH Pounder from Demonite and Face Off, Miriam Margolyes, who was in the live-action segments of Balto. She was the older Rosie. But getting a little bit more in depth on the film, the plot is basically it's the end of 1999 and the 2000s are about to enter. And we meet this woman named Christine, played by Robin Tunney, who we learned was abandoned by her family and was prophesied to be the bride of Satan. This has been kept a secret from her till now. Along with that, we also meet this cop named Jericho, played by Arnold, who lost his wife and daughter and is on the verge of suicide. He still works as a cop, though, with his partner Bobby, channeling his anger into solving crime. His friend is actually played by Kevin Pollak, and during one of their jobs, they are warned of Satan's arrival, who has already arrived on Earth and possessed the body of a guy, played by Gabriel Byrne, and starts making his way to Christine to make her his own. And bring the entire world to hell. So now Jericho needs to make his way through New York to defend Christine. All the while, Satan starts throwing everything in his power to stop him. Will Jericho be able to stop Satan and give Christine the chance to be a runaway bride? Or will it be a wedding in the fiery pits of hell? End of Days is a film that operates on the selling point of Arnold versus Satan in the story department, and it works its way from there. And if that's what you're hoping for, it delivers with the story, then you'd be right. With that said, I like the fact that the story is built around the whole Y2K craze and kind of takes that idea and asks the question of what if Satan really did come to Earth, and what if Satan did come up to find a bride. And I thought that was really interesting, and I like that there was more to Satan than just him coming up wanting to bring chaos to the world. And I like that the story is built into the Robin Tunney character and why she is the chosen one. But I also love how they show how Satan is able to work his way through the world, playing into the suave, persuasive, and subtly aggressive side he's known for. Like the scene when he's introduced through Gabriel Byrne, and he walks up to a woman without a care in the world, starts making out with her, and starts groping her. And this leaves the restaurant, literally blowing up behind him, and just how you see him tricking Arnold, like killing his friend and trying to persuade him into following his lead, like that scene in the apartment, or later when he starts hypnotizing some of the members of the city to attack him. It's chaotic, and I feel it works with the film, and it really shows the grasp he has on the world at this moment. And the script really has fun with this idea. Even old ladies jump on Arnold and he has to take them down. That's how insane this movie is in the story department. And it really goes all out with it. I don't agree with the complaints of the plot holes, because despite taking influence from the aspects of the Y2K incident and biblical prophecies, it's not a film operating on logic, especially being it's an Arnold movie. So the rules of reality don't really apply here. And I didn't find the plot holes as much as a hindrance as many people make them out to be, because they really aren't at the forefront. It's one of those things where you really have to dig into biblical stuff to really kind of understand that whole area and try to make sense of it all. Because that's something that people have pointed out is more if you're a biblical nut. And I didn't feel that was as much of a problem, because I feel that the movie itself is an act of fiction. It's telling its own story. So I really didn't find myself as mad with it as some of those people. That being said, I really feel where the film falters in the story department is more so in the middle. That's when the film really slows down, because it gets bogged down when they spend so much time in the middle going deep into the lore or elements of the story that I feel really slow the film down. Those aspects I can forgive though, because I feel like the film does pick up after those moments. But even with that, those are the moments that I think anybody who's going to come back and rewatch this film, those are the moments they're going to have a tough time getting through, as they're just there for exposition and break the show don't tell rule, because they spend most of the time in those moments explaining everything. So it's really boring and just, come on, you could have shown this stuff, or like have an opening that shows Satan at work. And I wish they trimmed those moments, or at least made them a bit more interesting, as opposed to having people in a church tell us this instead of showing us. After that, though, like I said, the film does pick up and it finds its footing again, and it becomes the action film we were promised. And I'm willing to forgive those portions of the film, because when you make it through those areas, there's a fun movie there with an interesting story. Now, on a technical level, I don't agree with Arnold's complaints about the film, because his interviews come off as bitchy and just give this whole "you're directing it wrong" attitude. Because I'll be honest, Peter's direction is solid. He knows how to work with the budget at his disposal. The lighting he has fits the film and its tone. I also feel he gets a lot out of the sets and gets some moody atmosphere out of them, especially the apartment scene in the opening, or the subway part. He knows these particular areas of the film and where to place the camera to create some unforgettable shots, like the moment in the hospital where the guy's strung up on the ceiling like this and it's up like this, and how that shot was created to create this really disturbing image, and just how it was lit, I thought really gave it a sense of atmosphere. When it comes to working with action and effects, he knows how to shoot them in a way that gives those moments a sense of dynamic energy and just eye-catching visuals. It really gives the film the energy it needs, and I think Peter there combines what he learned in his action films as well as The Relic to really give the best of both worlds. Always have felt Peter is one of those guys who never gets the credit he deserves when he comes to direct. And this film shows this, as well as The Relic and Sudden Death, which I think are his best films, and Time Cop.
And in those moments, I think he does a great job getting a lot out of his actors, something you need for a film like this. In particular, starting off Arnold, I thought this was an interesting role to take, being that he's always been typecast as the typical action hero he would usually do in these sort of films. But here, he's a guy who's already experiencing hell, being that he lost his family, he's on the verge of suicide, and he's depressed, something that Arnold has never experimented with in his career, and I think he does it well here. You really feel for him and his character, but there's still a bit of that Arnold-ism there with this sort of cocky attitude, like when you first see him and he gets the coffee from Kevin Pollak and he uses it to make this breakfast where he's mixing Chinese food and putting hot sauce in it. And he tries to give him some, and Kevin Pollak's like, nope. And he's like, breakfast is the most important meal of the day. So that side of Arnold is still there. It's not like he's completely depressed and sad, which I appreciate. And I think he does a great job getting into the serious side of the role and getting into the action portion and getting into the stunts. If there are stunt doubles, it was hard to notice them. But Arnold, you're always going to get a good performance from him. But probably my favorite aspect of the cast, I thought, was Gabriel Byrne as the devil. I thought he was perfect. I thought he was intimidating. He gave the character this real suave but held back attitude side to him that really made him intimidating, and like this sort of like when you walk by, there's something about him that seems off, like when he's talking with Arnold and he's showing him what happened with his wife and daughter and just how he's making it seem like it's his fault. Gabriel really sells this role as the devil. Robin Tunney, she does well. She's obviously playing second fiddle to Arnold, so anytime she's off screen, she's blown off the screen by him. But she's fine for what she's given. She definitely excels at what she's given. She wasn't wimpy, she wasn't bitchy. I think much like Arnold, she does fine for the action scenes. She's not up there with Arnold and his scenes, but for what she's getting, she's fine. Get a nice tit shot with her, though. You know what I mean? I appreciate she's not a romantic lead for Arnold, as he's more of a protector for her, so I appreciate that. And as a performance is fine. I'd probably say I like her more in The Craft, as she had others to play off like Fairuza or Nev. Other actors, you got Kevin Pollak, who's the friend of Arnold, who gets blown to shit. Udo Kier as this priest who ends up becoming Gabriel Byrne's bitch. CCH Pounder as his boss, Miriam Margolyes as a woman posing as Christine's guardian, Rod Steiger as a priest who tells them what's to come if they don't stop Satan. And the acting is solid from everyone, especially Rod and Gabriel, who I mentioned already, but Rod, CC, and Udo, all of which have done great roles in the past. So all around, the acting's solid. Then, of course, we get the effects. And there's some really great effects delivered by Stan Winston and K&B. And boy, do they deliver on the R rating. This is a violent-ass movie, and there's a great usage of practicality on the set. Whether it's the great action scenes that carry a great use of practical explosions, so it looks like they really blew something up, adding to the realism of the scene, or that moment in the house where they're fighting to get out and the house is on fire and Miriam's attacking them. It looks really good. A lot of it looks practical. A lot of it doesn't look CGI. And it was cool to see this real fire going on and Robin and him in the middle. So I also like the makeup on Gabriel Byrne, who when you see him getting more and more damaged, like chunks of him come off, so you see the inside of his skeleton, it's all black. I thought that was a really cool effect. And there's some really, really bloody moments, like this guy who gets a hole punched through him. Great practical blood and effects right there. So if you're a gore hound, you're going to get some great blood and guts. And there's some CGI used, particularly the ending, but it's moments I can see the CGI being used, but it's also accompanied by some good puppet work there. I like the big monster that the demon is at the end of the church, and it is a cool setting for a final. I like how it ends. Even though what happens to Arnold, some may not be too fond of, I do appreciate that there is a light at the end of the tunnel for his character, so it makes where he goes easier to stomach. So I appreciate that. I won't spoil it, but let it be known it's a great final that emphasizes Arnold's emotional side to the movie. So all in all, this is a really solid action film that really offers up a lot to the table and delivers on the promise of Arnold fighting the devil. It has its flaws, like every film. I already mentioned one, that the middle does seem a bit slow, but that can be forgiven, especially when the film picks up. But another thing that I really don't like is the score. It's really unmemorable. I like John Debney as a composer, and I praised him in my review of I Know What You Did last summer. I also like his score to Sudden Death. But here, though, I found the score to be really lacking and just boring. I don't know if his heart wasn't in it or if it was the best that he could do. And there was just nothing about the score that I felt was memorable or hummable. I think Marco Beltrami would have been a better composer. I think his heart would have been more in it because John Debney doesn't feel like he gives much to it. But those are really my only two problems with the film, because bottom line, End of Days is one crazy roller coaster ride to hell that offers up everything you could ever want in a film where the selling point is Arnold fighting the devil. So if you're sold on that idea, here's your movie. I highly recommend you check it out. It's definitely a fun ride to be had. And I think it would have done better had it not released around the same time as Toy Story 2. And I think if they gave it like a January release, even though I hate the dump months of that time, I think it would have done a lot better. But yeah, when it comes down to it, my final verdict for End of Days is a 9 out of 10. And it deserves it. Therefore gets the Alexandra Seal of Approval. Definitely one to check out if you like action films, you are looking for a good Arnold horror film, this is your movie. So yeah, that is my review for End of Days. And next time, since Friday, I am going to see next Friday. I figured, you know what? Now was the perfect time to talk about this movie, Friday. This is one that my friend has been wanting to see, so I figured why not review it, get it out of the way for him, as this is something that I have been wanting to review as well. So, yeah, this is the next film I'm going to be reviewing. I have a review coming of Chasing Amy and Dogma, so be on the lookout for those. But for right now, I will see you guys later. Let me know in the comments below what you guys think of End of Days. What is your favorite Arnold film? I would love to know you guys' thoughts in the comments below. Be sure to rate, comment, and subscribe, and I'll see you guys next time. Bye.